Okay, hi guys. So this is Ashley from Recovery Life Apparel. I am going to attempt to fit what feels like a lifetime of substance abuse in a quick video and tell my story. If you hear some sounds in the background, it is my dog being crazy. Go on. So, like a lot of people's stories, it starts out with childhood and pretty much for me being discontent in the way that I felt. And so I moved to Florida when I was about 12 years old, and I kind of started to feel like I had actually finally fit in a sense that I met friends who wanted to kind of be bad like I did. So we started kind of just light, kind of started smoking the whole Reggie out of the water bottle and the cans and that good old kind of stuff. And it felt really, really good. And I tried like the little Smirnoff twists and shotgunning the Bud Lights. And I just remember feeling, wow, like this is how I think you're supposed to feel. This is how I want to feel for the rest of my life. I don't ever want to go back to being confused about what life should be or what I should be doing or what feeling like happy is, because now I just feel leveled. I just feel like this is it for me. And then basically everything that I did and every social aspect, I felt like it needed to be there, or there was no point in me coming. And there was I felt like a day was a pointless, useless day if it didn't start or end in getting fucked up with my friends. That was the basis of my hangouts. And I had friends that agreed, and it was great. Actually, some of those friends actually had like different things going on in their life, but definitely if you were hanging out with me, that's what we were doing. So, I made it through high school with actually really good grades, and I kind of felt like as long as I had good grades and as long as I was showing up to like the extracurricular activities that I was in, that I was fine, right? That everything was good, and I was doing what society, felt like I should do, and all the while also being on like multiple probations, all growing up through like being in and out of juvie multiple times. But I said, hey, I have straight A's, right? So no big deal, because I'll still go to college and I'll still do all the stuff that like you say I'm supposed to do to not be a loser. So who cares if I'm getting in trouble and getting arrested at school, getting arrested spring break, getting my first DUI when I was 18 years old. But hey, that's normal too, right? Because everybody drives home from the bars. I just got caught. No big deal. Still in my mind, I never anywhere near thought that the way that I was living was a problem. I think then, I really moved out. I went on my own. I was still dealing with like legal issues, of course, from the DUI. But then after that was over, I felt like, okay, I'm just gonna live like a very basic life, so I can just keep doing what I'm doing. So I continued to basically revolve my entire life around drinking, and then I started incorporating Xanax into that because I truly do suffer from anxiety. But is it really helping you if you continue to mix it with alcohol? And of course, like throughout my partying, like I would try their stuff. If somebody had something, I would try it. Mainly pills and like cocaine and things like that. So I would, it didn't always really sit with me that well, but like that's the addict in me, because if everybody was doing it, I would do it too, because I wanted to be on everybody else's level. And so I wasn't really doing shit with my life. I was in college, but I was not taking it anywhere near seriously. Again, just doing it because I thought that's okay. That's the next step in what a normal person would be doing. So I got myself into some relationships where I think that we also both thought it was okay because we were both drinking, and I was in the service industry. I was a server. And so what does everyone do? They go out and drink after. So that fit perfectly for me. Cause that was just another reason why it made it seem like it was okay what I was doing. Around this time I started getting really sick a lot, and, I was diagnosed with like ulcers, and I had asked the doctor, Doc, is this because I drink so much? And, he just blew it off like, oh, you're young and, you're partying. Like, no, it's like, it's okay. Some people get ulcers for like different reasons. And so there's another excuse to think that like what I was doing to my body was no big deal and it was normal and it could have been from the alcohol, but you're young and that's what young people do. So I said, okay, like just write that off. And I remember even asking him like, is my liver going to be okay? He's like, you're young, you're healthy. Like, shit. okay. Mind you, same doctor who like prescribed me Xanax for anxiety and like never, not like it was really his job, but never tended to like ask about my mental health. And who knows at the time if I would have been honest anyways, or even realized that my mental health was an issue. So I continued on that way, and then college ended up not working out because I hit 25 years old and hadn't still done shit with my life, and I got a second DUI. And that was really bad because at that point I would day drink sometimes, but more so I would just make sure to I started bringing alcohol with me to places, which I still didn't think was that huge of a deal. It was either because like I didn't want to pay as much money, and my tolerance is a little higher than everybody else's. So, you know, instead of like drinking back to back, like I'll just have this extra alcohol on me, or like did not care about drinking and driving whatsoever. Nothing in my mind ever made me feel like I may be hurting somebody or could possibly hurt somebody else. So I figured if I'm traveling to different places, like then I don't have to stop and get something at the gas station. I'll just already have it in my purse and I can drink. Like I'm over here thinking I'm being smart. I'm over here thinking like I got this. I've got it all figured out. Like meanwhile, I'm a fucking idiot. So I went that day with some little wine bottles in my purse. It was the Winter Park Art Festival, in which you're allowed to walk around and drink. So again, like don't really care. I didn't care if I got caught. And so I went to move my car. I make like a U-turn to whip my car around, and I smashed into an SUV that had a mom and a 12-year-old daughter in it, and her 12-year-old daughter. That was really, really bad. I actually got Baker acted that day because they couldn't calm me down enough to arrest me. I'm all smashed up, blood all over me, and from the police report, it says that I'm screaming, telling them not to touch my stuff. Don't look in my car. Don't touch my purse. Don't touch my purse. And I'm like flailing, and I'm like half blacked out. So it really made no sense. Of course, to me now, today, I do know that I didn't want them to look at my stuff, because even though I just smashed my face into an airbag and I'm bleeding everywhere. Okay, sorry, I had to mesh two videos together because my boyfriend called me and I didn't put my phone on Do Not Disturb. So, somewhere inside of me, as I was saying, I still knew that I had alcohol, and I still knew I could get in trouble, and I still didn't want them to find it, probably so I could have it later, which is so crazy that we're so persistent in our mind with our substances. So yeah, I get Baker acted, and my family at this point, I mean, they knew my stepmom was coming to meet me that day, you know, to hang out. So they really didn't have any idea, you know, they thought my drinking was just like theirs. And it's like, you know, after work and on the weekend, which is like to normal people, okay, which now I really think is not okay. I think it's a coping mechanism, even if it technically doesn't turn into a problem, but that's a whole nother YouTube segment, isn't it? So yeah, so they get me out of the Baker Act, and you'd think that this would be a horrific experience for me, that I would think, oh my gosh, I'm at the point where I drink and drive, and I could have, they were not hurt. And so you'd think that I'd say, oh my gosh, thank God I didn't hurt anybody. I really need to change my life. But instead I dove deeper, immensely deeper, into my alcoholism. I've managed to drink my entire way through probation, even though I had drug tests that involved being tested and swabbed for alcohol. And that's when I went to the DUI class and learned that, I tell this story a lot, that like they were telling a story about this guy, Bob, and they said, Bob drinks so much, so when he wakes up in the morning, Bob takes a shot to get rid of his withdrawals. And I thought, oh shit, I always feel like shit when I wake up. But to like society's norms, you don't have the hair of a dog until like you have a reason to, you know, you kind of go out or whatever, or it's afternoon, or I always made lots of excuses of reasons why I wanted to go do things, with like my boyfriend and other people, that, were truly just because there was alcohol there. It was never even to like want to see them or do whatever it is that we were supposed to be doing socially. But anyway, so I decided, okay, let me try that like the day after the DUI class. And, I went and I took a shot the next morning, and that's when the chronic alcoholism began, because it did work and I did feel better. Not only did I feel better, I realized that I could feel like I do at night all fucking day. That is when it really, really, really started to affect my entire life. Losing jobs, lying immensely, hurting people, as if I already hadn't, but way at such a chronic different level. And as far as like continuing to get sick, that did not go away. In fact, now I'm at the point where I would be sick in the bathroom, throwing up everywhere on myself, and throwing up bile, and not even be able to get a sip of water down for 48 hours. I would be sick. And I would just lay there until I felt like I could get alcohol back down into my system. Because when you are truly, truly in the depths of chronic alcoholism, it's the only thing that is going to make you feel better. Obviously, except for doing a full detox and getting healthy again. But if you're not ready to get clean, that's obviously not an option for you. So basically struggling until you can get it down is really your only hope. So let's fast forward to about 28 years old. I let this continue on for another 3 years. Losing jobs, embarrassing myself, completely being uninvited to any social functions of my friends or my family. And it got to that point in which I did not care because I wanted them to leave me alone. I wanted to be alone to do whatever I wanted to do without any judgment, questions, or or anybody trying to stop me or help me or love me or be mad at me. Nothing. Didn't want anything to do with it, right? I was gone completely. So I got to a point where I really thought I was gonna die and go into seizure, and I was really scared for my life. I had been in the hospital many times, but they soup you up with the IVs, you feel better. I went to go home back and drink. But this time I had done it so many times that I didn't even know which hospital to go to anymore that would really even take me seriously and give me any of like the good stuff to make me feel better. Because the last time I went, they're like, yeah, no, we're not giving you anything. You've been here before for this. Here's another pamphlet on alcoholism. So I called my friend Lolita, who I now own this Recovery Life Apparel with, and she got me into detox, and I went to another city and got clean. And that lasted for about 3-4 months until I thought, hey, I'm great. Maybe that was just some really bad time in my life. I got dependent on it, and I moved back into town and thought that I could just try out being normal. So I started drinking again, and I controlled it for a little bit, maybe a month, and until it was back to just hiding it, drinking in the closet, completely getting sick. I invited my entire family and my boyfriend's family to our house to all meet and hosted my first Thanksgiving, and I was sick in the bathroom almost 80% of the entire event. And if I could muster up a regular tiny moment, I would go out and say hi and was like, I think I have the flu and blah, blah, blah. And it was horrific. And I'm sure I've never asked because I'm still too shameful to bring it up, but I'm sure everybody knew. That's probably what it was, that I had relapsed and was sick, alcohol sick. So, things get completely worse. I get kicked out, and I'm like renting rooms from people, and just, it's really, really bad. Took advantage of like the last friend that would enable me, and totally fucked that situation up too. Fell asleep bumped into the side of the curb, and for some reason the cop this time, because I always get arrested, didn't arrest me. And it was just Father's Day, where I went over to my dad's house like pretty sober and tried to pretend everything was fine, even though it's almost at its complete worst it's ever been. And that last friend that enabled me, I told her, I said, okay, like they let her come pick up my car, and I was like, yeah, I need help. So this time, I called Alita and I told her, but I drove myself out to a detox and was like, I have to get far away from here. So, which wasn't even that far. I went somewhere, it was like 5 hours away this time. And I went to Jacksonville, and then I lived in another halfway house. And again, a couple months later, stopped doing everything that was suggested of me and left again. This time I knew that I could not be normal, but I was miserable with my life. I didn't change anything about my life. I went back to being a server. I didn't try to grow myself spiritually. I did not try to add any sort of value to my life. Like, I just went back to the same life. So what was I expecting to happen? In my mind, I was like, okay, now I'm doing everything right, which I wasn't, and I'm still miserable. So what is the point? So I waited for some sort of excuse, and the hurricane came and everything got shut down for 2 weeks, literally everything. A lot of people evacuated. And so I thought, okay, great. I'm going to drink for these 2 weeks, and then I'll just go back to this boring, mundane life when the 2 weeks is over and just keep pushing through. I was instantly sick. I was instantly fucked. I mean, literally sick. And, you know, blackouts and things. And the person that I was with was, if it's possible, a worse alcoholic than me when it comes to like being in complete delirium. And I mean, it was a matter of a couple weeks before we ended up homeless. Couldn't pay our rent, couldn't keep our jobs, couldn't do anything. We were so sick. And so we ended up going our separate ways, and I was just living in my car, and I was like, this has to end, or I'm truly never going to get out. So I finally felt a true surrender, and for the third time, called Lolita, and got in my car and started to travel back to Orlando, in which, where I live, my home base, in which I got pulled over. Well, that's a long story for another video. I pulled myself over, so watch for Ashley's third DUI story. Pretty hilarious, but also sad. So I got my third DUI, and I really like to believe that that's like my higher power's intervention, in a sense of who knows what would have happened, who I would have hurt or hurt myself if I continued driving on the road that night. So I get out of that situation, in which I'm actually still on probation for that, but I also think that that's a blessing because it does keep me really focused, and it's definitely a reminder of everything I've been fighting for now that I am over a year clean. COVID kind of delayed a lot of the court stuff, so it kind of happened later as far as being sentenced for that. They took my license for 5 years, which I've really had to work through, you know, moving on from that, but what happens when you truly surrender and you truly realize that your life is worth so much more than the way you've been treating yourself for so long, is that you find an understanding for everything, for the wreckage of your past, the things that you have to deal with, the people around you, love, just a true understanding for life. And I like to think now that everything that has happened to me is, for as corny as it sounds, a reason. And that I can turn all of those things into a blessing, right? So, at some point I would be able to apply for hardships, but if you can get denied, and if it turns out that my license is gone for 5 years, well, I can sure as hell tell you that I wouldn't be drinking for the next 5 years, as I would be under supervision still, because I got 2 DUIs in 5 years, and that's a whole other realm of it. Again, in the YouTube video that I can explain to you, the kind of shit you can get yourself into, fucking around and drinking and driving. So, I lived with Lolita for a couple months, and we are going to do a whole video on like where we are now. But that truly saved my life, being around somebody who had a couple years clean, being around her family, and really getting a fucking close-up view of what success in recovery can look like, and pushing myself to break out of my comfort zone, finally fucking take advice from other people who have succeeded in staying clean, and get my mind out of the gutter of what I think is possible in life, because I truly just thought my life will always be trash, the world is against me, and things like that. And through recovery, I have really found hope that you can be and do whatever you want, no matter how bad of a situation you've got yourself into. And I know there's people that have gotten themselves into worse situations than me. You can dig your way out if you are willing to do the work, if you're willing to learn to love yourself, and if you are willing to change your entire life. And I know that sounds scary, but it's necessary. So please stay tuned for our upcoming videos, and click the link and subscribe, because we're going to be sharing really a lot more details about all these details, and then give our inspiration and hope for all aspects of your life, not just mainly recovery. But this is what it's all about, right? Is that we can recover. So I love you guys.